Hi, my name is Josh Listwood, and I'm a senior at Roslyn High School.
Hi, my name is Raf Pekar. I am also a senior at Roslyn High School.
Over the past few weeks, we've been studying the novella The Stranger by Albert Camus. And a few days ago, we went to Extra Help for Mr. Vogt to review our outline for this project because we thought it was mainly just a pure summary of the book. And it turns out we did not understand the main and deeper meaning of the novella. So in order to gain a deeper insight into Meursault's philosophy, we sought out Mr. Siegel, who's an English teacher who has been working in the English department for over 30 years.
Both Josh and I are thankful that you took your time out of the day for this interview. In the beginning of the novella, we initially characterize Meursault as thoughtless, but in time we come to understand him as an absurdist and eventually an existentialist. In order to further understand Meursault and his philosophy, our question to you is, in your opinion, what is the definition of absurdism and existentialism?
That's a good, provocative question you asked. You just have to understand that philosophy, ever since the ancient Greeks, has always been preoccupied with finding the meaning of life. It's not coincidental that existentialism should really achieve prominence during and after World War II, because especially in Europe, because you had World War II, you had the Holocaust, you had the atomic bomb, and so it completely reshaped people's thinking to the point where people asked if there was any meaning of life at all. Forget about what's the meaning of life. Is there even a meaning of life? So that's where existentialism comes in, and basically starts at the point where you don't know if there's a meaning. However, existentialists believe that let me go back. A nihilist would believe that the black hole of a lack of meaning would mean that there is no meaning and nothing matters. The existentialist believes that in the preoccupation and search for meaning, you create meaning. And you create meaning not in some kind of philosophical quandary. You simply find meaning in the living, the very existence, hence the term existentialism. But that's the most important thing. Not a set of abstract concepts, but just the mere act of living. Absurdism kind of comes as an outgrowth of that. So if you come to realize that existentialism is the philosophy of Jean-Paul Sartre, who was a French philosopher, Albert Camus is his contemporary, becomes a little bit later. What Camus basically takes is there's one basic philosophical question: whether you should live or die. Everything else is gravy, so to speak. Once you answer that, then it's just a process of putting your stamp on life, that's what matters, that you fight and struggle against the absurdity. Well, what's absurd? Well, we had no choice in our birth. We had no decisions in our birth. We will probably have no choice or decisions in our death. Just when we think we've gotten the hang of it, life is just kind of taken away from us. And that's the absurd. For most people, they would just give up. But for Camus and the absurdist, it's this idea, and he develops this in the myth of Sisyphus, that we are just pushing a rock up a hill, and even though we know it's going to come tumbling down, we struggle and do it day after day anyway, because that's what gives our lives meaning.
Yeah.
We're certain that, without question, your knowledge is not of only high value to us, but everyone that reads the novella.
You're very kind.
Thank you.
Another way to understand Meursault's philosophy is by recognizing the importance of the myth of Sisyphus. We believe the bigger picture Camus is trying to tell us is hidden in this source.
So the myth of Sisyphus was a story in Greek mythology about a man named Sisyphus who rolls a rock up a mountain. And every time he rolls the rock up this mountain, the rock just rolls back down again. And this scenario represents the philosophy of absurdism, which is Meursault's philosophy, because it shows that no matter what you do in life, everything is just going to fall down or have the same outcome. The rock at the end, the rock that falls down the mountain, emphasizes that everything eventually comes to an end, which is a key part to absurdist philosophy.
Well said. Camus uses Meursault as like a modern-day version of Sisyphus. One way he does this is by giving Meursault thoughtless as well as absurdist views. One way we can prove this is by reading the first line of the novella. Merceau says, "Amon died today, or yesterday maybe, I don't know." This is not only shocking to us, but crazy to think about at the same time, because in society, they don't joke about the passing of a loved one, and especially not the passing of our parents. It also shows that Merceau does not care or think about others and does not understand social norms.
So Merceau is first introduced as a heartless and soulless human who is rejected in society, which is shown through his reaction to the death of his mother, as well as his relationship with Marie. By the end of the novella, Merceau becomes much more introspective and starts to question his many actions that pertained in the previous events in the novel, such as why he killed the Arab, which comes later. And he becomes content with his life because he realizes that he lived it to his own standards and didn't let anyone else control it. And throughout the novella, Camus is trying to tell us that we can define our own goals and purpose, and we shouldn't let anyone else make that decision for us.
Merceau further justifies his initial philosophy through his relationship with Marie. No matter how much love and affection Marie would show towards Merceau, Merceau would either act unfazed or say that it didn't matter to him. This is proven when Merceau says, "A minute later, she asked me if I loved her. I told her it didn't mean anything, but that I don't think so. She looked sad." This shows that Merceau does not understand human norms. This scenario reflects Merceau's absurdist views on life, as he refuses to think about things deeply. He just accepts the life that he lives and does not put any thought or sense into it. He lets his life take its course and does nothing to control it. He only cares about his hobbies and does not think about other people's feelings, such as Marie's.
That was well said. That was good insight. So as we move on in the novel, Merceau and Marie visit Raymond, which was in the middle of the novel. And they visit Raymond at his friend's house named Mason at their beach house. And before they all go swimming, Merceau sees Mason talking to his wife. While observing this, Merceau imagines what it would be like to get married. To be specific, Merceau says, "For the first time, maybe, I really thought I was going to get married." This is the first point in the novella in which we see a change in Merceau's character as well as his view on life. He finally shows that he is ambitious and has goals and wants to have some sense of control over his life. Prior to this event, we saw Merceau as an individual who let events in his life, like his mother's death, run its own course, and he didn't show any emotions. However, after this scene, we see a new version of Merceau, otherwise one who starts to become more excited with his life as opposed to an individual who doesn't really care about anything.
Shortly after, Merceau finds the Arab lying near the springs. Merceau says, "I fired 4 more times at the motionless body where the bullets lodged without leaving a trace, and I was like knocking 4 quick times on the door of unhappiness." Merceau murders the Arab by shooting him a total of 5 times. We did not expect Merceau, who was originally absurdist in nature, to have such strong emotions and feelings toward another person. This scene portrays Merceau's new characterization as he begins to take responsibility and control over conflicts that do not even revolve around him. In the beginning of the novella, Merceau refused to even think about the tragedy of his own mother. However, in this scene, we see Merceau take ownership and stand up, who is not related to Merceau. As we go stages of the novella, we once again experience a shift in characterization from thoughtless to absurdist to finally enlightened/existentialist. It's prison where he reflects back on the events in his life, such as the death of his mother and a relationship with Marie. He finally realizes how unappealing his smoking and sex were to him. He finally accepts his fate and realizes that there is no way out of prison.
After a lot of time in prison, Merceau's murder case finally goes to trial. And one way the court solves their cases is through truth, forgiveness, and a belief in God. Merceau stands to none of these, which is why the magistrate called him Monsieur Antichist, I believe. Alongside this, Merceau comes to understand that the press, quote, quote, portrayed him as a monster in society, which broke him down mentally as well as emotionally. This case ended with Merceau receiving the death penalty by the guillotine. Merceau is happy with the way his life turned out because he lived them to his own expectations and did not let anyone or anything dictate the rules in which he shall live by. One quote that demonstrates his idea about this is when he says, "I opened myself to the gentle indifference of the world, finding it so much like myself, so like a brother, really. I felt that I had been happy, and that and that I was happy again. For everything to be so consummated, for me to feel less alone, I had only to wish that there would be a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution, and then they would greet me with cries of hate. At this point, Meursault becomes an enlightened existentialist.
This concludes our podcast. Thank you for taking your time out of the day to listen to both Josh and I. We hope you enjoyed.